Hello everyone, this is me Devoshmita Sharkar. Today we are going to talk about CBSE Class 8 History Chapter 4 Tribals, Decus and the Vision of a Golden Age. Overview. The customs and rituals followed by most tribes were very different from those laid down by Brahmins. These societies were not characterized by division of caste societies. All those who belonged to the same tribe thought of themselves as sharing common ties of kinship, but they did have social and economic differences within tribes. How did tribal groups live? The tribal people of India were involved in a variety of activities by the 19th century. Some were jhum cultivators. Some tribal people practiced jhum cultivation, that is, shifting cultivation. This cultivation is done on small patches of land, and the planters cut down the tree tops to allow sunlight to reach the ground and burnt the vegetation to clear it for cultivation. After the crop was ready and harvested, they were shifted to another field. Shifting cultivators were also found in the hilly and forested tracts of northeast and central India. These tribal people moved freely within the forest, and that's the reason they practiced shifting cultivation. Continuation. Some were hunter and gatherers. Tribal groups in many regions survived on hunting an animal and gathering forest produce. The Khans were a community who survived on collective hunts and divided the meat amongst themselves. This community ate fruits and roots and used oil extracted from the seeds of the sal and mahua to cook food. Shrubs and herbs were used from forests for medicinal purposes. These forest people exchanged goods with the things they needed in return for their valuable forest produce. When the forest produce shrank, tribal people had to wander out in search of work as laborers. Tribal groups were dependent on traders and moneylenders because they often needed money to buy and sell in order to be able to get the goods that were not produced within the locality. But the interest charged on the loans was very high. Some herded animals. Herding and rearing was also an occupation for many tribal groups. They were pastoralists who moved with their herds of cattle or sheep according to the seasons. Some took to settled cultivation. Tribal groups, even before the 19th century, began settling down. The land for the Mundras of Chota Nagpur belonged to the clan as a whole. All members of the clan were regarded as descendants of the original settlers who had first cleared the land. British officials saw settled tribal groups as more civilized than hunter-gatherers or shifting cultivators. How did colonial rule affect tribal lives? During British rule, the lives of tribal people changed. What happened to tribal chiefs? Before the British arrived, the tribal chiefs were important people, but they enjoyed economic power and had the right to administer and control their territories. But their functions and powers changed under British rule. They lost their administrative power and were forced to follow rules made by British officials in India. What happened to the shifting cultivators? The British wanted tribal groups to settle down as it was easier to control and administer settled peasants. The British introduced land settlements to get regular revenue sources for the state. Land settlement means the British measured the land revenue, the rights of each individual, so that the land and fixed the revenue demand for the state. The British effort to settle jhum cultivators was not very successful. Facing widespread protest, the British had to ultimately allow them the right to carry on shifting cultivation in some parts of the forest. Forest laws and the impact. Tribal lives were directly affected by the changes in forest laws. Some forests were classified as reserved forests as they produced timber which the British wanted. The British people stopped the tribal people entering the forest, but they faced the problem of getting laborers. So the colonial officials came up with a solution. The colonial officials decided to give Jhum cultivators small patches of land in the forest and allow them to cultivate. In return, those who lived in the villages had to provide labor in the forest department. Many tribal groups disobeyed the new rules, continued with practices that were declared illegal, and at times rose in open rebellion. The problem with trade. During the 19th century, traders and moneylenders started coming into the forest more often. They wanted to buy forest products, offered cash loans, and asked tribal groups to work for ages. In the 18th century, the demand for Indian silk was high in European market. The silk market expanded, so the East India Company encouraged silk production. The Santals of the Hazaribagh reared cocoons, and the traders dealing in silk gave loans to the tribal people and collected the cocoons. The middlemen made huge profits. The search for work. From the late 19th century, tea plantations started coming up and mining became an important industry. Tribals were recruited in large numbers to work at the tea plantations of Assam and the coal mines of Jharkhand. A closer look. Tribal groups from different parts of the country rebelled against the changes in laws, the restrictions on their practices, the new taxes they had to pay, and the exploitation by traders and moneylenders. Birsa Munda. Birsa Munda was born in the mid 1870s, and as an adolescent, he heard tales of the Munda uprising of the past and saw the Serdars leaders of the community arguing the people to revolt. In the local missionary school, he heard that it was impossible for the Mundras to attain the kingdom of heaven and regain their lost rights. Birsa also spent some time in the company of a prominent Vaishnav preacher. Birsa started a movement, and it um, aimed at reforming tribal societies. He urged the Mundras to give up drinking liquor, clean their village, and stop believing in the past as a the age of truth. When Mundas lived a good life, constructed embankments, tapped natural springs, planted trees and orchards, practiced cultivation to earn their living, the political aim of the Birsa Munda Raj, with Birsa as at its head. The movement was widespread, so the British officials decided to act. Birsa started touring the villages to gain support, using traditional symbols and language to rouse people, urging them to destroy Ravana, Dikus, and the Europeans, to establish a kingdom under his leadership. In 1900, Birsa died of cholera and the movement faded out, but the movement was significant in at least two ways. First, it forced the colonial government to introduce laws so that the land of the tribals could not be easily taken over by the Dikus. Second, it was showed once again that the tribal people had the capacity to protest against injustice and express their anger against colonial rule. So with this we came to the end. Thank you. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to comment in the comment section below. Bye bye. Stay home and stay safe.